Accelerating last year, when the country of India made high denomination rupees illegal, people across India are recognizing Bitcoin as the new digital gold. At the same time, as the definition of Bitcoin is scattered throughout America, top-level business schools are rushing to add Bitcoin courses to their curriculum as the demand for this technology is increasing pressure on what high-level technology and finance is demanding to know. Let's discuss. Hey everybody, I'm Gary Palmer Jr., you're you, together we're minting coins. Now, in the last episode we were talking about how people across the countries in Africa are in the unique opportunity once again to skip over the bank lines and go straight to Bitcoin wallets, just as they had done skipping over the landlines and going straight to cell phones. We're seeing inflation rates increase in several different countries across the world, different continents across the world, and with the increase of inflation rates, we also see a withdrawal of some high denomination notes, as we have seen in India just as recently as 6 months ago in 2016. The removal of these notes has, been most difficult on people who are at the lower ends of the economic spectrum. What we were talking about yesterday in Africa was how 80% of the adult population in Africa doesn't have access to a bank account. The similar numbers can be seen in India, as there's a massive number of people at the lower end of the economic spectrum who don't have access to a bank account. And without being able to have access to these larger size notes, it's very difficult to have, cash with no bank, especially as the value of that cash is decreasing. At the same time, in America, we see that the technology is not understood across different jurisdictions and levels of government, different definitions on a state-by-state basis, different restrictions that websites like Coinbase have to operate under in New York versus Hawaii versus Pennsylvania or Texas. And even though there's this scattered, disjointed recognition and definition and strategy around Bitcoin as a nation, we see business leaders and institutions helping define this definition and bring this information to the top 10% of the brightest minds who are entering these top business schools in our nation. And if you're one of these people, then congratulations, and that is excellent for you. The chances are, though, that there's a lot of other people who aren't attending these top-level business schools who are also demanding to understand about Bitcoin and blockchain technology, especially since this is so new. And if you're watching this video and it's 2017 or 2018 or 2019 even, or 2020, then you are an early adopter. And I want to congratulate you for being an early adopter of Bitcoin and blockchain technology, because in no stretch of the imagination are we even close to being past the early adoption phase. And if anything, we're probably still at the you're pretty crazy, this is just a fad. We don't even have yahoo.com if this was the internet phase yet. So with that being said, let's take a look at the market and pop into the news and let's discuss. Starting here at coinmarketcap.com, I just like to start here, take a look to see what's going on. Everyone might be used to seeing the screen that shows what the 7-day trend is. We usually have the 7-day trend over here in replace of the 1 hour, 24 hour, and 7-day numbers. But I really enjoy this view because this gives me a better picture in terms of how the 24-hour average of each of the top coins are acting in relation to the latest news, which is presumably the numbers of the last hour, and the week's news, which is the 7-day out. So, for example, right here, if I was calling winners, I would say the winner of the past week and the past 24 hours really looks strongly to Litecoin. I just see this strong trend where it has had the most volume of trading, second to Bitcoin, of course. And at the same time, it has this, upward trend with the 7-day percentage, the 24-hour percentage, and the 1 hour percentage. The numbers just are up all around. It's above Dash again in the number 4 position. And if you discount Ripple, because of the manipulation there of how that works with the market, Litecoin is practically the number 3 coin in the space. And as we get closer to solidifying SegWit activation after a few weeks, then I think that we could really see a strong base for Litecoin, and that base for Litecoin can definitely be the foundation it needs to potentially double, because that's definitely possible, even with all the haters of Litecoin. If it does provide a payment system and a payment network where Bitcoin fails to, and it does so in areas where it's able to take advantage of the weaknesses that Dash has, Litecoin has a strong opportunity to continue becoming the number 3 coin in the space. Their weakness though is that the Dash coin just simply has stronger marketing and stronger organization because of their consolidation of their power and their vote, because of the master nodes and how the decision making is really controlled by a select group of people, and it's not controlled on such a mass level like we see with coins like Litecoin and Bitcoin. All right, moving on. I saw this really cool infographic from Crypto Coins News from an article that they had posted recently, and I just wanted to share this with you to show their infographic and how the majority of all countries in the world have a smaller population than the number of total active Bitcoin users in the world. So countries like Finland or Greenland or Iceland have smaller population. There's more people using Bitcoin than people who live in these countries. And so it's a lot of people. If Bitcoin users were a nation, if there was one nation under Bitcoin, in Bitcoin that they trusted, then that country would be a larger population than any of the countries here that you see in red according to this infographic. Similarly, we have this connected infographic from Crypto Coins News that shows the national currencies of these countries in red that have a smaller aggregate value of their fiat currency than the aggregate value of Bitcoin. And this map is a little deceptive simply because there's so many different countries, and maybe Southeast Asia and the Eurozone, which have adopted other currencies, as like a standard, like a dollar or a euro or a euro. And so those countries aren't showing up because they're all sharing the euro. But if you were to look at their individual fiat currency, then they would be added in red to this infographic as well. And so what we see is that, America is strong, and what we know is that America is strong, and Canada is strong, and Russia is strong, and China is strong with their dollars, and Australia is strong. There are several countries all around that are strong. But we see these huge pockets, and we know that there are these huge pockets where their dollars are going through extreme stress. And Bitcoin, having an inverse relationship, just like gold, is definitely supporting these people in these nations. Cool. So turning to the first article that I wanted to share with everyone about Bitcoin in India, and how Indians are seeing Bitcoin as the new digital gold. If you don't know, people who live in India have a deep respect for gold and a deep historical connection to gold, and the fact that Bitcoin is marketed as a digital gold, and it's compared to a digital gold, probably really connects with the cultural identity of the people who are living in India. And so we know Bitcoin has had dominance in China, and taking extremely strong traction in countries like Japan and South Korea. And the adoption rate is growing rapidly in India as well. And so, as mentioned before, part of this is definitely likely due to the demonetization policies that had been implemented. And people in India, the government in India, businesses in India are really starting to take notice because of articles that are being written and information and attention in the media that's coming out. Very recently, the Times of India, this article is talked about a gentleman who lost a small fortune in Bitcoin by exchanging Bitcoin for extra lives in his game, which is something that he obviously regrets if it's more than 0.01 Bitcoin. It was probably more than a couple whole Bitcoins. Without reading that article, I haven't taken a chance to look at that yet. But Bitcoin adoption can be seen not just in the media reports, but also in the data that's coming out of these areas. And so, for example, with this one company, Unicoin, it took 2 years and 10 months for them to reach 100,000 users, and only another 6 months to reach 200,000 users. And so this is some significant logarithmic growth that India is seeing, especially after the demonetization policies that were implemented in November 2016. And so this Unicoins guy, Sunny Ray, he says that he thinks that it's less likely to do with demonetization inside India's money system, and more to do with the underlying benefits, which range from Bitcoin being a store of value, as it's seen as a digital gold, or it's remittances, as opposed to the current system of losing 4 days and 10% in fees. Also simply the P2P payments, buying things online, selling things, in addition to other reasons as well, that Bitcoin is all around awesome. But at the same time, all these reasons are great, but after the demonetization policy, I'm sure that's been a painful realization that the people of India have felt, that has created more of a sense of need of them to have to look into why they would want a new gold, or why they would want a new system for remittance. or why they would want to make P2P payments in a different way. Because they experienced either the extreme inflation much quicker than we do in America, which made it more painful and more noticeable. Or imagine if, as there's been talks in the Washington Post in America of the United States losing the $100 bill. Imagine if we were no longer legally allowed to use $100 bills. I think people in America would definitely start to look at Bitcoin a lot more closely as well. And so what's going on here now is that while more people in India are looking at Bitcoin, the Indian government has established an interdisciplinary committee chaired by various institutions like their country's central bank and Ministry of Home Affairs to look into Bitcoin and to make all sorts of analysis and examination and recommendations for investments and money laundering and all sorts of reasons why the government and the bank would be interested. And they're going to be reporting their findings as of July of this year. And so it's unclear what changes this committee is going to bring, but what we see is a proactive approach that the pro-Bitcoin and cryptocurrency users and investors and companies in India are creating the largest self-regulatory body in India called the Digital Asset Blockchain Foundation of India, the DABFI, which has the hopes of educating the public and working with the best law firm in the country to establish policies or information to help guide the understanding of Bitcoin in India, especially since the existing organizations that are created by the Indian government probably don't understand blockchain technology as well as the businesses that are actually using it and developing it. And so it's really important that everyone helps, share information and educate people so we understand truth about Bitcoin and blockchain technology, and we're not just sharing fear, uncertainty, and doubt. We really want to be eliminating that and not saying something that, unless it's backed up in fact and reality, unless it's current and relevant, and not just twisting things that were said or rumors. And so just to show everyone who hasn't seen, this is the article from Bitcoinist.com that just talked how people in India could be jailed for 4 years for holding the decommissioned 500 and 100 rupee notes, which the government signed a law that would jail the citizens of India who continued to hold these notes. I'm assuming just the citizens. I'm not sure if the foreigner would be jailed for having these notes. I'm sure it's possible. 4 years of jail time for holding these notes. From December 30th, 2016, the banned rupees can only be deposited through the RBI, the Reserve Bank of India. And so this makes it much more difficult for people in India to operate, to live their lives, to buy and sell food and have commerce and get paid and pay people. And just to show you, here's the Washington Post article from February 16th, 2016. It's just over 1 year old, 1 year and 2 months old, by Lawrence H. Summers, who is the university professor at Harvard and a former Treasury Secretary and Director of the National Economic Council in the White House. And so He's had the privilege to direct and issued an important paper by the senior fellow Peter Sands and a group of student collaborators that makes the compelling case for stopping the insurance of high denominations like 500 euro notes or even the $100 bill, even withdrawing them from circulation. And so here's that article right here. I'm going to highlight this real quick. So here's this information right here that makes the case. And so, this isn't active government policy. This is just, a university professor at Harvard and former Treasury Secretary and National Director of the Economic Council of the White House, who writes for the Washington Post and creates papers that compels information for lawmakers and for leaders of governments and leaders of industry. So speaking of Harvard and high-level schools and important information that's being shared with the world, we've been seeing the disjointed information from different judges and different jurisdictions and different lawmakers from different states, and even inside the federal government, lots of different talk about Bitcoin and the technology, if it's a cash, if it's a currency, how it's should be regulated, how it integrates with existing laws, and how new laws can be written for it and about it to essentially control it and prevent criminal activity while still allowing people to invent and to create new things and to make life better. And so in this article, what we're seeing here is top U.S. business schools working to incorporate blockchain technology with their curriculums. And mainly what they're seeing is that the demand for traditional MBA skills are being set aside because there's pressures from the student angle and the students, what the students want to learn about, and there's pressure from the business side and what the businesses want new MBA graduates to know about. And so what we see is that we see finance departments and business departments like New York University's Stern School of Business who are now adding these blockchain courses into their MBAs. What they're noticing is that technology firms like Amazon have surpassed traditional Wall Street titans like Citigroup. And the results of all this is that students simply do not want to take generic MBA courses on classical finance topics. They're recognizing, courses that are involved in futures and options as they relate to both stocks and Bitcoin technology is where the demand is at. And not just top business schools like at NYU, but business schools like Duke University, where they're seeing that even having a working knowledge of blockchain technology can be a powerful tool for someone's career advancement. And so this is really interesting because these are top business schools in the country. These are the leading schools in the country. These are the organizations that are creating the next year's leaders who are going to be going to work at Fortune 1000, Fortune 500, Fortune 100 companies, all sorts of companies developing their own businesses, working in governments, making decisions that will demand other people are hired who have this information. And if you're listening to this video right now, then I hope you see that this is a huge opportunity for you. This is a huge opportunity for you to learn more, to know more than any of these MBA students coming out of these colleges practically. Even if you don't have the skill sets in math and data science, even if you don't have the skill sets of being able to read, you can learn more about Bitcoin and blockchain technology than 99% of the rest of the world could even understand, because this is just so new. But while it's so new, and the Bitcoin technology came out almost 8-9 years ago, the demand is now being pushed more heavily in these top tier MBA schools in America. And so you can get a jump on these leaders. You can get a jump where you live. You can get a jump where you work by continuing to learn about Bitcoin and blockchain technology and incorporating as much information into your mind, into your reality as possible. Because what the top business leaders are seeing and what they're hearing, what we're all hearing, is that Bitcoin or blockchain technology is unhackable, it's unbreakable. We know there's minor caveats to that there's minor details that make that true. Bitcoin could be hacked if there's a 51% attack, or if all of a sudden energy became free and quantum computers with AI intelligence were able just to instantly attack the Bitcoin algorithm. Sure, right? But what the business schools are looking for, what the businesses are looking for, is simply an honest assessment of what's feasible and what actually requires development, between what they need to know about not just the risk, but the actual possibility of all the possibilities of what can be accomplished. So it's not just NYU and UCLA, and it's also top schools like Georgetown and University of California, Berkeley. There are additional schools that are creating summits and that are incorporating blockchain technology into their different finance programs, business programs, fintech programs, who are getting collaboration between students and businesses and professors, and growing interest and understanding at the educational institutional level of these schools, facilitating the understanding, which quite honestly is what you're doing in a semi-unstructured way on YouTube. Because what we all want to do is to understand how Bitcoin and blockchain technology fits into our new economy, and whether or not different aspects of this new technology can grow, and how they can grow, and what's feasible. And as you're learning about this, and as we're all learning about this, what the universities are learning is that a new tangible problem for these business schools is finding professors and lecturers who can speak on these subjects with authority. And this is just adding additional. It's underlining the situation that we're all in, where there's just increasing demand in understanding the technology. And while more people are looking to get more information, you're not only a student of this information, but you are also a teacher. And if you're listening to this information, then you are on your path to be able to share this information with other people. And depending on how you make your decisions and what you want to do, you can share this information with people that you know at meetups. You can share this information with people that you know at your work. You can share this information with people that that your friends or whatnot, because all sorts of people, not just the universities, are looking for folks who can talk about Bitcoin and share this information, because we're just the tip of the iceberg of who wants to know about Bitcoin. We've talked about this before, that while some in academia point to the emergence of blockchain and this data science technology is a simple fad, we know that this is a technology that we cannot afford to overlook, because we have heard over and over again that Bitcoin is a fad, and I see this as a direct comparison to the dot-com bubble in the 1990s, and everyone decided that no one was going to use the internet, no one was going to buy things, put their credit card information online, no one was going to communicate via email. It was going to be too expensive. It was too difficult for it to work over the phone lines. And so this is a waste of resources for us to put so much time and point people in this direction, when I recognize, and different universities are recognizing, that the true risk is that we don't commit, and that we fail to keep up with the technology, or we let the governments define it while they don't understand technology. We let the few businesses define it while the rest of the people don't understand the technology. Or we let certain segments of the world define it while other segments of the world don't understand the technology. And the true way that I believe that we all win is when everyone has an equal piece in success, when everyone has understanding and ownership of the system. And each and every community, we want to flood with the resource of information. Each and every community, we want to flood with the resource of Bitcoin and different cryptocurrency blockchain technologies. Wow. It's just overwhelming to some degree to see Bitcoin, to feel Bitcoin, to hear about Bitcoin in my own life, as I'm experiencing it online, as I'm experiencing it from the anecdotes and stories of other people on the web. From my position in New York State, I see how the BIT license out of New York State has created a lot of restrictions on who can be involved in the Bitcoin industry to different capacities. There's so much information, conflicting decisions that are being made on if Bitcoin is a cash, if it's not a cash, or like a currency, or just a digital asset. This has repercussions with how it's taxed and how people use it from state to state. So the repercussions from country to country are definitely interesting, with how people are able to interface with the Bitcoin protocol. Because ultimately, Bitcoin is borderless, it is cashless. It doesn't, care really who you are, if you're a human, if you're a machine, if you live in one country or the other. It just cares if you have your own keys to your Bitcoin. And so, we're seeing Bitcoin mass acceptance in Japan. We're seeing, first world countries like Japan, and we're seeing the slow acceptance and interest and understanding and integrating Bitcoin into countries like Russia and all sorts of countries across Africa, and now in major countries with major economic problems like India. So we've seen other examples with very strong countries get taken down because monetary and political decisions and the way that's affected different countries. And business leaders are really the first to understand the impact of these decisions as they relate to the economy and the ability for a business to survive, economic decisions from government, political decisions from government. And so it's interesting to see the top business schools in America to really be instilling this information with the next generation of leaders who are being developed. And my hope is that everybody watching this is taking in this information, because we're all the next generation leaders who are here to take in this information and to share this information and to create more than any one of us individually, right? By coming together and by listening and by learning and then by going out and share this information to the rest of the world, we're in a unique opportunity of not just being the early adopters, but being true sparks for all sorts of people in not just our communities, but across the world. So with that, I want to thank you for listening. I want to thank you for showing up. But I'm also looking for a little bit more than that. I want to know what's the Bitcoin legalization like where you live. Share that information in the comments below. Also, if this video helped you, please give it a thumbs up. Like the video. Feel free to share this video, even though this is still an awkward experience for me being in front of the camera. But feel free to subscribe, and thank you for hanging out. So until next time, I'll be shooting out another video in the next couple days here, bringing you the news, bringing you information. And until then, I'll talk to you in the comments or at the website mintingcoins.com. Thank you very much, and have a great day.